We keep hearing that AI is going to completely change medicine, right? That it'll be this perfect doctor's assistant that never sleeps, never gets tired. But what happens when that brilliant assistant is, well, faking it? What if it's not nearly as smart as it looks? Let's get into it. So here's the plan. We're going to follow a pretty fascinating scientific detective story. We'll start with the promise of this AI assistant, then throw it a tough Italian language challenge. We'll watch it go head-to-head with an older method, see why human experts had to step in, and then we'll uncover this perfect-looking score that's hiding a huge secret. And it all wraps up with a really important warning about using AI in the real world. All right, so first, let's just set the scene. Let's talk about the incredible promise of AI in our hospitals and clinics. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The potential here is just massive. The whole idea is to use these powerful AIs to help doctors make better calls, get rid of all the tedious paperwork, and, ultimately give all of us better care. Now, the tech that's making all this noise is something you've probably heard of. Large language models, or LLMs. Yeah, these are the brains behind tools like ChatGPT. They're trained on just an insane amount of text, which, in theory, lets them understand language, context, and all the tricky nuances. And this really shows you the dream, right? Imagine an AI that can read literally every medical study ever published. Or it could take a patient's entire messy history and give you a perfect summary in seconds. It could even spot patterns that help lead to a faster diagnosis. That's the goal. A tireless, super brilliant assistant for every single doctor. But, a dream is one thing. Reality is often another. To see how these things really perform, some researchers in Italy set up a very specific test. And this gets us to the absolute core of the problem. Most of these AI models are trained on a mountain of English text. So, can you just take one, drop it into a hospital and say Rome, and expect it to work perfectly out of the box with zero special training? That's the big question. So the test they designed was pretty straightforward, but definitely not easy. They took more than 8,000 real patient health records, all written in Italian, and the AI's job was simple. Read each messy, unstructured record and figure out if the patient had one of 5 specific medical conditions. And these are the conditions they were looking for. We're talking about common but really critical stuff like atrial fibrillation, kidney failure, and diabetes. These are what doctors call comorbidities. Basically, other issues a patient has that you have to know about for proper treatment. So spotting them is a huge deal, and it means the AI has to understand complex, sometimes confusing doctor's notes. Okay, so the researchers set up a classic head-to-head competition. In one corner, you've got the shiny, new AI, and in the other corner, the old, trusted method. Let's break down our 2 contenders. On the left, we've got the LLMs. Think of these like a brilliant student who's a generalist. They can pretty much read and understand anything you throw at them. On the right, you have something called regular expressions, or regex. This is less like a student and more like a custom-built, specialized tool. Experts create these hyper-specific search patterns to find exact keywords. It's powerful, for sure, but it's not flexible at all. The first round of results came in and, well, they were a mess. I mean, look at this. They were completely all over the place. One AI got a pretty terrible 28% accuracy compared to the old way, but then another one, Mistral 7B, scored a really impressive 83%. This huge swing meant they couldn't draw any real conclusions. The data was just too muddy. So when your data is that confusing, you realize your measuring stick is broken. To get to the real truth, the researchers knew they needed a benchmark that was beyond dispute. They had to call in the humans. So yeah, how do you solve a problem like this? How do you create that perfect, undeniable baseline to test the AI against? What they did next was really clever. They took 100 patient records that the old regex system had flagged as negative, meaning it didn't find any of the conditions. Then they had 2 senior expert doctors manually read every single one of those notes to see if that old system had missed anything. This created a small but perfect ground truth data set. Basically, a flawless answer key, verified by human experts. Okay, so now the stage was set for the real test. This time, the AI wasn't going up against another computer program. It was being judged against the gold standard, human expertise. And honestly, the results were shocking. One of the AIs, Mistral 7B, scored an incredible 92.6% accuracy. At first glance, this looked like a huge win. Wow, the AI was almost as good as the expert doctors. The medical revolution seemed like it was right here, right now. But wait a second. In the world of data science, you learn pretty quickly that a single shiny number can sometimes hide a much more complicated, and in this case, a much more worrying truth. Okay, this is it. This simple table tells the whole story. Let's break it down. Of those 100 patient records, the expert doctors found that 90 of them really didn't have the condition, but 10 of them actually did. Now look at what the AI predicted. For all 100 cases, it said absent. It never once, not a single time, flagged a patient as having the condition. It got that super high score just because, in this particular sample, most people were healthy. And there's the gut punch. The AI wasn't showing some deep medical understanding. It had just figured out a lazy shortcut. Guess the most common answer every single time. It wasn't actually reading the notes. It was just playing the odds. And by doing that, it missed every single patient who is actually sick.
This case of mistaken identity isn't just some weird little finding in a scientific paper. It's actually a massive warning sign for all of us as we rush to put AI into these really high-stakes situations.
The researchers themselves said it perfectly. They warned that these models absolutely have to be tested properly, and we have to be so careful that the metrics we use to judge success aren't fooling us. So, what do we take away from all this? Well, a few big things. First, that a high accuracy score can be dangerously misleading. Second, you can't just grab a general-purpose AI off the shelf and expect it to be a specialist. Third, just because an AI works great in English doesn't mean it's going to work in Italian or German or any other language. And finally, and this is the most important one, when people's lives are on the line, basic testing is not enough. You have to dig way deeper. Look, this story isn't about being anti-AI in medicine. Far from it. It's a call for us to be careful and wise. And it leaves us with this really critical question for the future. As we build these unbelievably powerful tools, how do we make sure they have not just the intelligence to find an answer, but the wisdom to find the right one?